I'd be traveling to Yellowstone National Park in the summer of 2016, I was ecstatic. Now, to my surprise, just as I was boarding the plane to Wyoming, as my dad is trailing behind me, flipping through his Yellowstone informational book, he reads the lines, "America's oldest, most famous national park sits on top one of the largest, most explosive volcanoes ever to exist." Now, as you can imagine, I almost snatched my boarding pass right back from the flight attendant, fearing that I was getting on the plane to my death. When we boarded the plane, my dad reassured me that although we were traveling to a still active volcano, there was no chance of it erupting anytime soon. When hearing about this geothermal activity in Yellowstone National Park, I was intrigued to learn more. So today I will be informing all of you on what I learned about America's oldest national park and its geothermal features. From listening to this, I hope you can all gain insight into a topic you may never have considered interesting, and maybe even one day consider traveling there to see its beauty in person. So the majority of Yellowstone National Park lies in Wyoming, as you can see on this map. Parts of it extend north into Montana and west into Idaho. As I already said, Yellowstone is America's oldest national park, and it was established in 1872. Highlighted in Brenning's book, Supervolcano, published in 2007, Yellowstone erupted about 2.1 million years ago with an unimaginable amount of energy. So much so that no volcano in history, since humans were literate and able to witness it, has ever erupted with the same magnitude. Augustine and Kubina's 2010 book, Yellowstone National Park, describes the geothermal features that were left over after the explosion. These geothermal features are things like geysers and hot springs. Geothermal systems are places where the Earth becomes hotter than its surrounding areas due to the magma that lies close to the Earth's surface. Yellowstone is so full of these geothermal systems that you can almost see steam streaming out from the ground from all angles of the park. Of Yellowstone's many attractions, geysers are always a hit among the tourists. Explained in Brian's 2008 book, The Geysers of Yellowstone, geysers are basically just hot springs where water is shot directly up into the air. Yellowstone's most famous geyser is named Old Faithful. It is the most regular geyser in the park. It erupts about every 20 to 35 minutes, and its eruptions can last anywhere from 1.5 minutes to 5 minutes in length. And the water that comes out of Old Faithful can reach heights of 90 to 184 feet. When I went to Yellowstone, I got to see Old Faithful erupt in person, and here I have a short video of it. So for geysers to shoot water into the air like that, they must have 3 core elements. 1, they must have an abundance of water. 2, they must have a high heat source. And 3, they must have an efficient underground plumbing system. The underground plumbing system is the most important part in a geyser's eruption, and it basically determines whether or not the geyser will erupt. Illustrated in Reinhardt's Geysers of the World book, published in 1880, after a geyser erupts, the water returns to a stable condition, and then the cycle starts all over again. Getting to see Old Faithful erupt in person was pretty spectacular. Me and my parents were just a few of the thousands of tourists gathered around the geyser, watching as it shot water upwards of 100 feet into the air. Surrounding these geysers in the park are thousands of hot springs. 60% of the world's hot springs lie in Yellowstone National Park, and they are the most common geothermal feature. Hot springs occur when the water seeps beneath the Earth's surface, heats up, and then rises back to the surface, where it can reach temperatures of 199 degrees Fahrenheit. When I heard my dad talk about these so-called beautiful hot springs, I wasn't expecting anything spectacular. But that assumption was busted when I saw the Grand Prismatic Spring pictured here. The Grand Prismatic Spring is Yellowstone's most photographed hot spring because of its beautiful and vibrant colors. David's 1897 article, The Vegetation of Hot Springs of Yellowstone Park, describes these hot springs getting their colors from the mineral deposits. There are wet mineral deposits and dry mineral deposits in these hot springs. The dry ones are usually pure bright white, and the wet ones usually come in the colors you see here, such as green, blue, orange, and yellow. So one thing that really surprised me when I went to Yellowstone was that there were no fences or borders around any of these geothermal features, and they're all very dangerous. As you can see here, you can basically get as close as you want to these geysers and hot springs. As recorded in 2013 in Wetzel's book, Death in Yellowstone, there were at least 20 people who were known to have died from falling into hot springs. Sometimes these people are usually unsupervised children that are running around and accidentally slipping and falling into them, or they're letting their curiosity get the best of them and they bend over to touch the boiling hot water. Arundale's article from 2018, Deaths and Injuries at Yellowstone's Geysers and Hot Springs, points out that other people are just in the wrong place at the wrong time. These geysers and hot springs are so mesmerizing that people often try to get as close as they can to them, and they end up just accidentally slipping and falling in. One of the scariest things about these hot springs is knowing that if you do fall in, you can remain conscious for a long period of time before eventually dying. So I guess when I say that I traveled to Yellowstone National Park in the summer of 2016, you could also argue that I basically traveled to a still active supervolcano. When I first heard that I was going to Yellowstone, I was excited to see the animals and the wildlife, and I was totally forgetting that I was traveling to a supervolcano and I was going to see all of these amazing geothermal features. After going now, I can say that the geothermal features are one of the best parts about going to Yellowstone. So from listening to this, I hope I may have sparked an interest in all of you to learn more about Yellowstone's geothermal features and the fact that it is a supervolcano, and maybe have you guys consider traveling to Yellowstone one day to see it for yourselves. I highly recommend vacationing to one of the world's largest and most explosive volcanoes ever to exist.